go. All right. I'll see you in about an hour.
See you in an hour.
The act of my medium taking a break of 2 weeks, you would think it would make things more difficult, that the medium may not remember. But the pathway has been channeled all the way through. So this process of linking will never leave him. A process of following a true path to doing this work will always be there. So the act of taking the break has had no effect on his ability to connect. And this is the same for you. Once you have set your course, and if you like, you've etched the groove into the earth, then that path is set until you choose not to take it. It'll take a long time for that path to fill up, heal over, to not exist. And the more that you walk that path, the more ingrained the process and the ability to become. Hence, your periods of practice are creating a worn path. A worn path that will stand you instead for when you are troubled or when you have some difficulty. This is also true when you work within mediumship. If you do not sit and feel spirit with you, then the path can become a little more frail. Particularly in your early days of development. You may forget which pathway leads you towards mediumship and which pathway leads you towards your spiritual work. But once you have that path firmly established, it becomes a natural way, an easy way, a way that you take without thought, and your effort becomes less. And the ability to try and your willingness to push drops away. So it is the repetition that creates the path and ingrains the ability within the mind. And it stays there as long as you wish it to be there. You can, of course, pick other paths. So as I have said, this break has not done any damage whatsoever to the medium. In fact, it has dusted away some of the distractions and some of the alternate paths. And hence, the ability is still here. But during this process, this 2-week process, there has been changes in the medium's availability of his spirit team. Now you hear the voice of one, be it I or another. But it is only those of you which are astute who know that there are not just one communicator, that there isn't just this voice. There is a presence of many. And I am the spokesman, if you wish, for those which stand in the shadow. So often within these talks, there is more than one personality that is evident. In future talks within this series, which we'll talk about in a moment, there will also be multiple communicators. But with each communicator, there will be others which stand and help that communicator in the flow of words or the answering of questions, or which are the correct words to choose for that person, the one asking the question. So in this series of talks to follow, there will be some times where questions will be asked. And you should notice when this occurs that the answers will still come smoothly and fluently, I hope. But it'll be one talking on behalf of many. Perhaps you'll see this in its true light when this occurs. But before we go into the talk, and also a description of this series of talks, it would be remiss of me not to work with all those which are on the healing list. So may I ask you, please, for the names of those which are there on the healing list.
It's good to hear from you again, my friend. Yes, the names I have on the list here are Jerry, Maureen, Teresa, Neil, Charlotte Burridge, Tess Flynn, Batul, Ahmad, Vivian Sellers, Gail Mella, Julie, Kaur, Sri Malyani, Marion Haley, Eileen, Evie Rose Johnston, Olivia Johnston, Howard Wielden, Loretta, and Michelle. Thank you.
Now, my medium had another name on that list, which he took off. Barbara. Now, Barbara was mentioned on that list in previous weeks, but now is in the process of transition into spirit. She has left her physical body and is in the process to the transition to spirit. Now, he took her from the list thinking the work is done. But the work is beginning to aid her to heal, to shake off the shackles of the physical world. That work has been going for 2 weeks, and will have at least another 2 weeks before she steps fully into spirit. So healing, you often think it is the physical that needs healing, and of course this would be true. But healing can still be sent at the time of transition. And should be sent. Those which leave your world should be still within your mind and heart. They should be held there. They should be remembered and spoken about, and a place set at the table. They should be there fully with you. This is a time of trauma for some, not knowing where they are, and that is why they are met by a loving spirit. This is why they are then healed, if you wish. Their eyesight becomes true, not the limited eyesight of the physical world. And of course, at times of burial, funeral, this of course is difficult in the main. Difficult not because they do not accept they are necessarily spirit, although this can be the case. It is difficult because they see the suffering of those they love, the pain that they are going through pointlessly, because they see the body in front of them and not the spirit that is around them. It is often at these times that those aware, those with some gift of spirit, can feel the touch, the shiver, the shake of spirit presence. Those sensitive feel it the most these times. Not always the one that has passed on, but also their team for comfort. Is it not when you are feeling you most in pain that you can feel the spirit with you most generously? And yet it appears also the opposite is true. When there is pain, there is comfort from spirit. But then there are those who are in pain and struggle to find spirit. And they say, I have served you and you are not here in my hour of need. And they feel alone and lost and troubled. And then they doubt and question. I assure you, in your moments of pain, it is when we are whispering mostly within your ear, stroking your hair, touching your back, pulling you to our chest. Remember, it is not us that creates the barrier. We are always with you. How could it be any other way? So let us progress. In Buddhism, the teaching is often described as a learning process for the moment of death. How to deal with the bardo, that grey area between death and life, or between life and death if you prefer. The moments of transition. In Christianity, they often talk about the life in the ever after. Will you go to heaven or not? The world beyond death. In spiritualism, though, they say there is no death. Yet we have those practicing for it and those practicing for beyond it. And spiritualism say, well, there isn't a death. What are you talking about? Spirituality this is learning how to live, how to find your truth, how to understand life, and to live life from the position of death, if you wish, to live life with the understanding of spirit, or of understanding of your true nature. So here, spiritualism can be at the most fault. And you often see within all of the religions about how to live and how to die and what happens on the other side. And in many religions, they teach you through guilt and thou should not. They teach you through pain, and they do not always teach you the truth in the depth. Yet all the teachers do point to this. And this is where their teaching in truth goes. Not how to die, but how to live. In spiritualism, you often see the spiritual ego at play. And it is not just with spiritualism. You see those within Christianity and even Buddhism, and the others, of course. The teaching of all of them is how to live. And how to find the truth. They get misinterpreted. And many people listen to teachers who just say, how wrong they are all of the time. As we are now contacting and talking amongst ourselves, mainly within the spiritualism environment, you see those which connect to spirit and maybe say wonderful words and wonderful messages. And yet when they step away from that environment, they do not understand what spirit is. They limit their life by the 1 hour reading or message. And it is spirit that does that work. But it is the medium who must do their own work. So this is why mediumship can be a distraction to your path. It can be a doorway, or in Buddhist terms, a finger that points to the moon. It shows you the way, but it is not the moon. How often do you see those which profess to have a spiritual contact, yet perform in a way as if they have never heard of spirit within their daily lives? Those that spook the word love and live the word fear. Of course, this is a confusion between truth and illusion. They talk about the truth but live the illusion. They have not learned. They may be an immensely capable practitioner, but a very poor demonstration. In future weeks, when we begin our education process of spirit doing the teaching, there will be those which want to develop mediumship, to improve or even to begin their mediumship connection. And that has value. But what is also of value, and maybe even greater value, is the application of bringing spirit into your daily life. Bringing spirit into your life when you are washing dishes, cutting the lawn, writing messages. Why would you leave your connection to spirit to 1 hour of reading and not the 10 hours of non-reading? Isn't bringing spirit into your daily life also reaffirming that pathway that we spoke about before? Does one not support the other? Does the act of meditation, awareness, mindfulness, does that not support both sides of this life as I describe it? And of course, there has been times where we have worked with some about your daily life events. Now, sitting in circles and sitting in groups and witnessing a medium working, or even a medium blending, or just sitting in the energy that is around, will have an effect on you. Whether you are the working medium or just the one sitting observing. It has an effect on your energy, your vibration, if you wish. But often those within mediumship terms are so interested in their vibration that they forget their consciousness. At the depth of consciousness, there is stillness. It is the vibration that runs through the consciousness that gives life. So over the next few weeks, we'll talk about not just how you come to your truth, your spiritual self, how to see it within your lives. Able to feel connected in your daily life. How to live from the truth and not the illusion. Four times in the last 2 weeks, my medium has received messages from people in pain, and saying, how do I deal with this pain? How do I deal with these troubles in my life? The difficulties, sometimes of money, sometimes of love, sometimes of loneliness. Sometimes of lack of clarity. So based on those four communications, this series of talks has been brought into fruition. How to live your life. And how to survive your own death. So for those of you which are present and anyone that is listening to the recording, those listening to the recording may send a question to the medium to be answered. Obviously, if you are present, you can ask it directly. And it may be regarding your life. We will be careful to answer the question, to not embarrass or to say something that should not be said, through privacy. So answers at times may be a little general, but only to protect. And we will direct as best as we are able to each of those, so those listening can get an understanding that Spirit are still with you, that your path is seen and known, that the trauma you feel is with us as well as with you. And as has been mentioned in previous talks, there will be an additional communicator that will answer questions as well, that you have not yet fully heard. Now, you must remember within that talks that each of the answers are to bring you back to truth. To blow away the dust, to reveal the light, to show you you are spirit living this life. This must be more valuable than showing you that you will survive your death. So we will answer the questions by coming back to life, by showing the spirit in the life. And as much as possible, how to handle your problem. As has always been said, it is not what is happening to you that's important. It is where you are viewing it from. In around 4 weeks' time, we will begin the process of educating once more through this medium, through to small groups again. But more news about that later. So I ask those listening to prepare your questions for next week. As I have said, there'll be one spokesman, maybe a different spokesman for each question. But there will be a team of spirit answering. Many that you will not know. Many that you do not need to know. There were 3 great exercises that have been given to you. Exercises that it is only when you live them you understand their beauty. The first one is to let Spirit do the work. The second was to build love in your heart before any action. And the third had a series of 5 steps. They were to stop, to stand back from the situation, to connect to your spiritual nature, to act from your spiritual nature and not to connect to the transient. You may know 1 or 2 of those exercises according to where you were within the different talks and groups. But in essence, those 3 exercises are the same. To come back to the spiritual nature. There are those within these groups that wish to know how to be a better medium, how to be a healer, how to work with the people. How to live life, this life, so they do not have to do it again. The answers are always within those 3 exercises, which come back to the truth of living from the spiritual self. Know thyself. Seek first the kingdom of God. Be the lilies of the field. All come back to the same point. So we will guide you from there to there and beyond. Beyond for one person in particular. When those questions come from that person, the level of communication will be so deep that the rest will not understand. But it is for their guidance, and they will. So prepare your questions. Continue to add to the healing list. Build up love in your heart and be grateful. Some while ago, we offered a spiritual challenge for 30 days or thereabouts. If you remember, it was extended by a couple of days just to sit nicely to the end of the month. And you were given exercises of walking through doors and sitting down. These, of course, were to make you stop and to think of spirit. Now, there is a story that one day a disciple who worshipped Krishna he said, I must be Krishna's most devoted follower. I live and breathe my day with Krishna. And Krishna appeared to this disciple and said to him, you are indeed a worthy disciple. May I ask you to do one thing for me? And the disciple said, whatever it is you wish, my Lord. So he filled a bucket full of water and asked the disciple to put it on his head and to carry that bucket around a tree and back. Maybe 100 meters. The bucket was full to the very brim. And not wanting to get wet, the disciple walked very mindfully. Each step being fully aware of the bucket on his head. And when he returns back to Krishna, he said, my Lord, I have done your task. This is the bucket. I have spilled not a drop. Am I your most devoted follower? And Krishna says, you are not. He said, look at that man there. He did not lose his attention on me, even though he was carrying a far bigger burden than a bucket of water. That man there is my most devoted follower. Now you may wonder what this story has for you. The man carrying the bucket, and I will change the words, but the man carrying the bucket lost his attention to spirit and saw only the problem on his head and the successful achievement of that problem. The other man had spirit in his heart throughout all of his problems and never lost faith. Now, this story is not asking you to carry a bucket on your head, but is showing you at the times of your most greatest trouble is the time when spirit are most required. There is no point in just thinking spirit are with you just during your positive time. The answer to all four of those inquiries regarding their pain, the true answer, was always to come back to spirit. The four questioners, communicators, were seeing the bucket of water on their head and not the spirit in their heart. So it is returning to the value of your spiritual nature is where we will go. So I ask you to build love in your heart before any action. Now, when you do so, when you have love in your heart, and you do this exercise sufficiently, you will lose yourself in the love, and you will see that it is total madness to want to retain that love for yourself. Do you not want to give it away when you have love or happiness within your heart? Can you possibly hold on to it? Yet you would say to me and to any other that love is your greatest gift. Build up love in your heart before action. Do try it and see if your life responds in a different way. So next week, send people who you would like healing for. Send questions you would like answered. And if you can, be here to ask the question yourself so that I can heal and work with your energy as you ask the question. But if you cannot, so be it. God bless you all. Until next week, when we come again.